Today you're going to start in on your Chapter 1 project, and this is going to be a part of your assessment for Chapter 1. So I put a PDF with the instructions for Chapter 1 as well as the data that you'll be using, but I wanted to kind of explain some of the parts and make sure that you understood exactly what it is I'd like you to do. So I'm going to kind of read through this. It talks about a portion of your Chapter 1 assessment will consist of an open-ended opportunity for you to demonstrate the skills you have acquired through your study of Chapter 1. So below is a list of 24 randomly selected elementary students. You're going to use the data in a way that you deem appropriate to demonstrate your knowledge of the topics you learned in Chapter 1. However, these are things that you need to include. You're going to have to include a histogram, a stem plot, a dot plot, and a box plot. Now, when you do those, you're going to have to do one for each set of data that you choose, okay? And you're going to do that for different sets of data, and I'll kind of explain that here in a second. When you make your graphs, though, for each graph that you make, you have to do all of these things. You have to do the shape of the distribution. You have to find the range, the 5-number summary, the interquartile range, the mean, and the standard deviation. Then you're going to try to decide, well, which of these would best describe the data? And we talked about ways you can make that decision. The grade that you get will be based on the quality, the completeness, and the creativity of your displays. You may submit your project electronically or in a hard copy form. Whatever you feel like is more appropriate for your project. So you're going to try to have fun with this project. And again, your grade will be reflective of your knowledge, your effort, and your creativity. So these graphs that you're going to make, first of all, if I look at my data, the data that I gave you has a number of different types of data here. Now, keep in mind, these graphs that you're making all deal with quantitative data, so you may have to make the decision which sets of data are quantitative. But you're going to have to do, again, one histogram, one stem plot, one dot plot, and one box plot. So let's say I decide I'm going to do a histogram, and I'm going to do the heights. So I decide, okay, I'm going to do heights for my histogram. Well, I've got to use all the data that's in this height column, okay? Then once I've done that, I made my histogram, I used all those heights, I've got to include then, erase this, get out of the way, I have to include then with that graph all these things that we listed, the shape of the distribution, the range, the 5-number summary, etc. All these things that I have listed here would have to be with that graph. And then you'd follow up with, okay, well, what parts of that would best describe my data then? So I've done my histogram, and I'm ready for my next graph. Say I'm ready for my stem plot. Well, now I have to choose something different that I haven't used yet. So I already used heights, so I can't use heights again. I've got to choose something different at that point. The same thing when you get to a dot plot, you have to choose a different set. And for box plots, you'd have to try something different as well. But each graph has to have those different things that I listed. Now, you can do these on Google Sheets. We have done that before. Some of these are easy to do on Google Sheets, some are not. You can do it by hand and take a picture of it and submit it that way. You can do it by hand, and if you are in class, then you can turn it in that way as well. If you do it by hand, though, I want you to make sure you don't just do it like an assignment, put it on lined paper and things of that sort. I want you to try to spruce it up with some color, make sure everything's neat and use straight edges, etc. Okay. And if you have specific questions, you can submit those to me on It's Learning. You can send me a message. This will be due a week from today. So that'll be due on Tuesday of next week. You'll have today to work on it. Tomorrow will be a work day during your e-learning. And then you may have a little bit of time on Friday to work on it as well. But this will be due again on Tuesday of next week. Now, one of the things you have to find is standard deviation. And so far, we've done standard deviation by hand. However, I told you that at some point in time, you wouldn't have to do it by hand anymore. Well, it's your lucky day because today is when you don't have to do it by hand. So I wanted to show you how you can do it on your calculator. You'd still start out the same way by going to your stat button and selecting edit to put values in. So I just put some random values in my list right now. Then what I have to do is I'm going to go to my stat button again. I'm going to go over to calculate, and I'm actually going to choose number one variable statistics. I put my data into L1. Now you notice all these steps we're doing right now were the same steps that we did when we found mean. We had to arrow down and we can find the median and the 5-number summary, all those different things you've already done. But there's also this value right here, the standard deviation. So where it says SX, that was really the standard deviation. I don't think it'll let me do that. So where it says SX, that's your standard deviation. You're going to round that to 2 decimal places in most cases. So now when I ask for the standard deviation, you won't have to actually do the computations with the table. You can use the calculator to help you. All right, so that's our Chapter 1 project. So that's what I'd like you to work on today. You can send me messages again if you have questions, and that'll be due a week from today.